Hi there, business owner. Do you want a better understanding of business finance, what your numbers actually mean, and stories of the highs and lows of business, where I'll be sharing my tips and tricks every week? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Hello, welcome back to the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. I'm Stephanie and you are listening to episode 7 of this podcast. Now, originally I'd planned to cover payment solutions this week. Last week I covered bookkeeping and accounting softwares and the pros and cons of each and my personal opinion on them. And this week was going to be payment solutions. However, last week I attended Accountex, which is the biggest exhibition, in my opinion, of bookkeepers and accountants. So I had some fantastic meetings with some new softwares and suppliers and companies I wasn't aware of. And there's one payment solution that I'd really like to cover in this podcast. So I just need a few more days to test out and try this software to give a full rounded opinion of that particular software, included with the other ones I'm going to cover anyway. So this week I'm going to cover what I learnt at Accountex and how you can make the most of exhibitions depending on your business. So, instead of my top tip of the week I usually give you guys, I'm going to go through 3 or 4 tips to get the most out of exhibitions based on what I've learnt at Accountex this past week. So first of all, when you're looking for an exhibition, there's 2 different ways you need to look at what exhibitions you want to be attending. So first of all is you're in your niche. So I'm a bookkeeper and accountant, so I look for the bookkeeping and accountancy exhibitions. Now naturally, at a bookkeeping and accountancy exhibition, they are going to be full of bookkeepers and accountants, which are, I guess, competitors in my industry. I don't see it that way. You'll find that the accountancy industry is actually very collaborative and we all like to help each other succeed. I'm part of a group called the 6-Figure Bookkeepers Club, and it is full of other bookkeepers, and honestly, when I say I've found my tribe, I really mean it. Bookkeeping can be quite a lonely and isolating industry to be in, particularly if you're starting your own business or it's just you and one other in the office maybe, or you work remotely from home. It is quite a lonely job role. It is not hugely collaborative with lots of moving parts. You do deal with a lot of it on your own. So having a bookkeeper or accountant in your network, or a few that you can bounce ideas off, sense check sometimes, it's really beneficial, and meeting them in person at these events, especially post-pandemic, is really great for building that rapport. The other great thing about attending exhibitions in your industry is that there's quite often talks and speakers and sessions where you can learn about upcoming trends in the industry. It helps build your knowledge base. Accountex, for example, gives us our CPD, our Continued Professional Development certificate and points, which we have to achieve a certain number of CPD hours each year to keep our practice license, which is really important for knowing the ins and outs and the upcoming trends. It also means we can give a better service to our clients. The other thing that I really found beneficial from Accountex was meeting with software providers that I already use, software providers I don't currently use, wasn't aware of, hadn't learnt about. It really does give me a lot of things that I can now implement into my business and offer even better service and more value to the clients I have. Now, there's another type of exhibition that I would recommend that you look out for as a business owner and attend, and that is the exhibitions that are put on for your ideal client. So your ideal client or customer is going to be hanging out at these events, which gives you the perfect opportunity to understand what's going on in that industry, to look at the latest trends, the ins and outs of what's going on for them and problems that you may be able to solve. And thirdly, all the exhibitors are going to be experts in their field, and they're really good to get to know and to network for referral purposes. And also, if that wasn't enough, you're going to be networking with the other visitors and delegates that are attending these exhibitions, and they are literally going to be a room filled with your ideal client, the people that you want to have in your world, the people that you want to sell to, the people that you want to work with. So if you are in construction, for example, you could be a accountant that specialises in construction clients. You want to be attending the construction exhibitions, because they're the perfect place for you to build your network, build your leads, and put you ahead of the game from your competitors in your field. Now, believe it or not, Accountex last week was the first bookkeeping and accountancy exhibition I've attended in person. I have come from a motorsport background, so I have been to Autosport, for example, and the National Motorcycle Show in Birmingham. So I have attended other exhibitions, but Accountex was my first one in my industry, in my niche, which is why I think I'm buzzing off the excitement of it still and want to share my top tips with you and what I've learned from that type of exhibition and how it can really benefit you in your business. So, my first top tip and what I want to talk about is how hot it is in the Excel. Now, I've been to a few exhibitions before, as I said, and often they've got the aircon blowing full blast, and I get really cold really easily, so I often have to layer up and wrap up warm. Accountex in the Excel the last couple of days has been baking, absolutely baking. Now, on the second day it wasn't as warm in there, and I'm not entirely sure if that is because they turned the aircon up or if there was just less bodies, there was less people around, which leads me nicely into, if there is a more than one day event, the second day is usually quieter, which means if you want to have conversations with the big exhibitors, or there's talks on both days, the second day will always be less busy, which is great for networking purposes. If you want to hold out and do the second day, you're going to get much more beneficial conversations. You're going to not be quite so squished in and hot and boiling as we were this week. It was still incredibly busy, but it wasn't as busy, and it felt a lot easier to get around to the different exhibitors on the second day. Also, take a water bottle. There's usually refill points dotted around wherever the exhibition is being held, where you can keep refilling your hot water bottle to keep you hydrated. I had barely any voice on Friday morning from all the talking and all the discussions and meetings, and it was great, but I probably should have drank more water. If you do forget your water bottle, a lot of the exhibitors tend to give away branded merchandise such as water bottles as their swag, so you may be able to get one from an exhibitor stand if you forget one, but I would just take one with you to be prepared. Secondly, not all exhibitions do this, but Accountex actually have their own app which enables you to have a look at the floor plan your route, plan what talks you want to attend, plan what workshops you want to attend, plan which exhibitors you really want to visit and speak to. Sometimes you can set up meetings beforehand, so I set up a couple of meetings before the event that I could attend each day, just to make sure I'd spoke to those particular exhibitors, because they were ones I really wanted to speak to. And you can also then plan them around any of the talks, because at Accountex there was 10 different theatres, all had talks on over both days, so it was very full on, very packed. In fact, I think I had 3 talks booked in at 2 p.m. on the Wednesday that I wanted to see them all, but I had to make a decision based on, I actually went on based on which one was the least busy, so because some of them were queuing out behind the theatres, people were standing room only because they were so fully packed with people, which is great, and speakers and the content was fantastic. But if you can plan ahead, but knowing it's going to be flexible. So the meeting I had booked in for Thursday, they'd sent me a text on the Wednesday while I was watching a talk in the Stage Theatre. So I went over and had that conversation with them because something happened. So my plan got turned a bit upside down for the day. But it was one of the best meetings I had of the show. So I'm glad I went to it, and I'm glad we did it on the Wednesday, and I'm glad that everything was sorted, signed, delivered, and ready to implement when I got back from Accountex on the Friday. That does lead me nicely on to my next point, which is to schedule time to eat. It is so easy to forget to eat. I can't say I forgot to eat, but I didn't prioritise eating on the first day. And definitely by sort of 4 or 5 p.m. I could feel it, having only eaten a muffin, which was not ideal, especially as one of the exhibitors then started doing drinks from 4 till 6. I was driving, so I didn't have them, but there was drinks available, and accountants really know how to party. But make sure you schedule time to eat. Make sure you have a look at what's there. Sometimes food and drink will be on offer from the exhibitors. Sometimes, so this one was at the Excel in London, and there was various food outlets just outside of the show. I wish I'd taken more time to stop and eat. It is very packed, it is very full on, but actually you need to take care of yourself and make sure you do take time to eat and sit down and have a break, because your feet are going to hurt. These exhibitions are usually huge and have a large floor area, so there's a lot of walking to do, there's a lot of steps to do. On the first day of Accountex, I didn't feel like I took as many steps. My Fitbit didn't say I'd done all that many steps, and I think that's because there was a lot of standing and talking rather than walking. But on both days my feet hurt by the time I got home, and I wore comfortable black trainers, so make sure you are comfortable. And finally, I think probably the most important thing I learned at Accountex and after Accountex was from James Ashford, and he was saying that implementing immediately is essential. So I didn't this time, but definitely for future exhibitions that I attend, I'll be taking the day after the exhibition out of the business to implement things that will move the business forward. I think it's really key to not feel like you've wasted that time. As great as the exhibition was, it was really great to meet people and networking. If you don't implement the things you learn, you've kind of wasted that time. So implement immediately. If you can't do it that day, do it the day after, or schedule time in your diary to actually make a difference to your business with the new information that you hold. So there are my top tips and the things I learned at the Accountex exhibition this week, and I really hope it's been useful for you. I'd really love it if you could go out there and have a look at the exhibitions. That would be great for you, either because they're in your area of work or they're where your ideal client hangs out. And let me know on social media at abcs.uk on Instagram, abcsuk on Facebook, and at abcs_UK on Twitter. Or drop me an email, info at abcsuk.co.uk. I'd really love to hear from you. I'd also really like to ask you a quick favour. It looks like most of you are listening on Apple Podcasts. So if you could leave me a 5-star rating or a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, I'd be truly grateful, because the more people that rate and review and share this podcast around, the more business owners I can help. And that is the whole reason I started this podcast initially. Have a wonderful week.
And that brings us to the end of another week of the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, rate and review this podcast wherever you are listening to it, so that I can reach more business owners and help them build better businesses. See you next week for the next episode.